Hello and welcome back to the Daily Fantasy Edge. I'm your host, Peter Jennings. I go by CSU Ram 88 across the daily fantasy industry. And as always, joined by Al Seinfeld and Adam Levitan. Al, we are officially into the NFL playoffs and into a new decade, a new year. How are things in LA and how's Smith's life going?
Things are good. Spent New Year's with the family, obviously. We went down to Malibu. It was a nice weather day. It was like 60, 65 degrees. Went to the beach. It was sunny, so it felt real good. My kids inexplicably are getting into fishing. It's like 180 degrees from anything that I have ever been interested in. They've been watching some fishing show like Monster Hunter or Monster Chaser or something on Netflix. And they're out of their mind. Like, I want to go fish for barracuda. I'm like, no, not happening. I can't wait to hear, have you ever built that truck for your kid, Adam? Speaking of like the ghosts of Christmas past. You didn't, because you just looked at it. It's in the corner.
It's actually underneath our deck on a tarp right now. We're just waiting until we move to find a place for it and somewhere that he can ride it. But yeah, it's not the best situation.
Adam is a known fisherman. He's been fishing in the DraftKings streets for quite some time. How's the fishing going, Adam? And how's the new year for you, buddy?
Yeah, Happy New Year. Happy New Year to everybody. Yeah, no, it's good. I everybody was like tweeting out there like, here's what I looked like in 2010 and here's what I look like now. And I was like, I look the exact same. Just check my profile picture. The funniest is the people who don't get the joke. They don't follow me or whatever. They just saw it somehow and they're like, "You're just as ugly in 2010 as you were in 2020." I'm like, "Thanks, bro."
The thing is, we got video for this podcast now, so people know you don't look like that old profile picture, But the podcast doesn't go up on YouTube till Sunday anyway, so nobody sees it.
That's what I was gonna say. Nobody sees it.
Well, Adam, you got to have some news and notes on the podcast. We do have a listener league. Anything else you want to tell the people before we dive into the games about the playoffs, DraftKings, listener league, etc.?
Yeah. First of all, I apologize. There's no solo pod this week. I was big time on Team Smell the Roses. It's having kids out of school is quote unquote great and also a massive nightmare. So yeah. No solo pod. I apologize for that. However, DraftKings, for the first time ever in the history of this podcast, has decided to run a listener league in the playoffs. So it is a 1K entry, not 1K entry fee, 1K entries in the tournament, $10 as usual, 3 entry max. So I'm sure it'll fill quickly. There's always a ton of action for these short slates, for these playoff slates. So go ahead and get in there.
Wait a minute. This is a massive life league. This is a massive dad life league. If you're telling me that your kids are out of school, obviously they are because it's winter break, and you did not sign them up for any sort of winter camp?
Did not.
Massive dad life league. This is not optimal, Adam.
What's been going on here for the last week was definitely not optimal. That I agree with you. that I agree with you.
Yep. My kids are at camp right now playing some sort of sport or hide and seek or tag or something. They're out.
Hashtag Smith's life. Let's dive into the games. It is fun. One thing I will say is make sure you're leveraging late swap. There's additional edge in that regard. I'm really excited for next week as well. I think next week's games should be awesome. This week, a couple spots I really like, but it's definitely not as sexy of a slate. But still a lot of advantage, and game theory wise, I think there's going to be a concentrated ownership on certain players. So we will absolutely hit on that. First game is the Bills at Texans. Texans are favored by 2.5 with a 43 total. Big news that I saw, J.J. Watt was activated. Adam, what are the additional news and notes?
Yeah, I mean, when J.J. Watt first went down, they said he was definitely out for the year. And I don't know, somehow he's back. I don't know how much he's going to play, how effective he'll be. But yeah, I mean, J.J. Watt going down for this defense, obviously no small thing. So if he can give them anything, I think that's big. Other injuries on the Texans side, Will Fuller, was brutal on, I think it was that Saturday slate where Will Fuller aggravated and didn't return. And that was really rough. And Will Fuller has aggravated his hamstring/groin injury a couple times now, so it sounds like he's going to play. There was a report from a reporter who I actually had never heard of before, but he had a sourced report that said Will Fuller, the expectation was he will play against the Bills on Saturday. So I don't know. Obviously, there's major risk of aggravation. And the Bills are just so good at limiting big plays. No defense has allowed fewer pass plays of 40 plus yards on the year. It's just not a good matchup for Will Fuller in general. But it sounds like Will Fuller is going to be out there. We know he's like, out of all the guys under 5K at wide receiver, he's like the only like actually like legit good player. So I don't know. That is what it is. On the Bills side, the Bills have been so healthy all year, man, and it's crazy. I can't remember a team being as healthy as the Bills have been. I thought it was notable that they made Frank Gore play the entire first half in Week 17. Frank Gore only played 2 snaps in that must-win game in Week 16. Like, it's obviously time. Like, I would not be surprised if Devin Singletary played literally 100% of the snaps against the Texans on Sunday. And obviously, you know, that makes Devin Singletary very, very much in play. You just have to know that around the goal line, it's possible he gets vultured. It's possible, you know, Josh Allen is so effective down there, et cetera, et cetera. But, you know, Devin Singletary playing 100% of the snaps has to intrigue people, I think.
He's involved in the passing game. And I think that the question, I mean, everything we're doing on this slate has to be from, in my opinion, a game theory standpoint, right? So, like, if you're playing Singletary, I think he's mutually exclusive to Allen because you're kind of rooting against yourself, right? They're not really, as much as he is involved in the passing game, Singletary, he's basically tied, or his upside is tied to his ability to score touchdowns on the ground inside the 5 carries, and Josh Allen vultures a ton of those. So like if you're playing Josh Allen lineups, I'm probably going to exclude Singletary from those. If I'm playing Singletary, obviously I'm not going to have him with Josh Allen at all. So it's, are you on the passing game or are you on the running game? And as Pete said, the big value is the final 2 games of this slate. So the Saturday games are supposed to be a lot more low scoring for obvious reasons. Now, Buffalo has not allowed a lot of big games to wide receivers, but the games that they have allowed are the 5 top wide receiver performances that have happened against Buffalo. 4 have come by a wide receiver 2, Landry, Jakeem Grant, Jamison Crowder 2 times. So expecting Fuller to be the guy as opposed to Hop is not out of the realm. And I think that Fuller back, and we've said this about so many different wide receivers in the past, right? Not so many, but like Deshaun Jackson, Randy Moss, Tyreek Hill, the things that they do to an opposing defense by just being on the field present running routes help out everything else with the offense. So I'm more interested in somebody like Deshaun Watson in this game with Fuller active than I would have been if Fuller was not active. In the games that Fuller has played, Deshaun Watson over the last 3 years, from 2017 to 2019, he has had basically an entire touchdown more per game in 22 games with him active versus 16 with him out. He is averaging about 50 more passing yards per game on the same exact volume, 31 pass attempts, 31 change pass attempts, 21 completions per game over that time. So basically the same volume, but he's been extremely more efficient. More yards per attempt, about 1.5 more yards per attempt when Fuller there versus when Fuller's out. And what that does to a defense just frees everything else up underneath for guys like Watson. And when you look at the Bills, the 3 best games that they've allowed to opposing quarterbacks have come when guys have done stuff on the ground. Dak Prescott with 25 yards rushing. Fitzmagic when he ran for a touchdown against them, and Lamar Jackson doing Lamar Jackson things, running for 40 yards. So from that perspective, I like Watson a little bit more this week than I would if Fuller was out. I'm fine if you think Fuller's going to be the long distance guy. I love the volume with Singletary, and the price is really cheap. So the value running backs look very appealing this week, I guess.
Yeah, I tend to agree with all of that. I do think Watson gets a really nice bump with Fuller in, but we certainly want to monitor that up until Saturday, and there's a decent chance that he re-aggravates something. We've seen that so much with Will Fuller throughout his career, just a ton of soft tissue injuries. Watson versus Brees, I think, is a really interesting decision, and we'll see how that plays out. I think the leverage play in this game for the game theory and tournaments would be going to the Bills passing game. I don't think Josh Allen will be owned at all, and certainly has upside with his legs. And John Brown just had an awesome season, and I think he's really interesting, as well as Cole Beasley. Where is he on the dusty scale this week, Levitan, Cole Beasley, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the dustiest? Where do you put
No, I don't. I think I didn't. I'm pretty sure I said that I liked Cole Beasley on Thanksgiving, and yeah, I like Cole Beasley on this slate too. I mean, I mean for sure. I'm just been like on Josh. I love Josh Allen, man. Like when everybody was like killing Josh Allen, like through the pre-draft process, like you can just see the way he plays for fantasy is so amazing, and that's obviously all I care about. He runs, he throws deep, he's super aggressive, he extends plays. I think Josh Allen can have a real big game here. I think John Brown and Cole Beasley can both have real big games here. I would not surprise me at all to see Buffalo go in there and win and win on the back of Josh Allen. So yeah, I think not dusty at all on the Cole Beasley stuff. And to me, John Brown is like, I mean, one of the best plays on the slate. Like, there's no doubt.
Yeah, I tend to really agree with that. And then for value, you'll get all these tight ends from Akins to Fells to Dawson Knox, low owned. They're cheap. I think people are going to wait to play the Eagles tight end situation, but or maybe Jared Cook. Those guys will be low owned and certainly will lead you to a different roster construction. So those are the other considerations. Any final thoughts on this game, boys? That's a firm head shake from Smiz. So we are moving on to the Titans at Patriots, 44 total. And we talked about it on last week's podcast. I mean, the Patriots joked it away versus the Dolphins. That 12 to 13% that was factored into the big free money line came to fruition. Now they have to host a game here versus the Titans, who have really finished strong. Tannehill, obviously a big upgrade over Mariota through the second half of the season. And just like in the 2018 season, Derrick Henry was an absolute monster in December. Patriots are favored by 5, 44 total. What are the news and notes here, Adam?
Yeah, Julian Edelman, he's definitely been banged up. Like, it's hard to read on the Patriots stuff because they just list everybody questionable and everybody in the injury report. But Julian Edelman definitely has been playing through shoulder and knee injuries. He says this week he feels a lot better. If he really does, I mean, Logan Ryan, I think is decent. Former Patriot Logan Ryan is decent, and it's not like the best possible matchup, but Logan Ryan's been targeted a ton this year with a reasonable amount of success. So I don't know, man. If you think Julian Edelman is actually 100%, I think he's really strong and a really good bet to get 10 or 11 targets in this spot. On the other side, I don't really have many injuries really on either side. I think from a matchup perspective, obviously throwing on New England is very difficult, but like we saw last week, it can be done. Like Ryan Fitzpatrick and Devontae Parker, I mean, they did it against Stephon Gilmore. I do expect Stephon Gilmore to shadow A.J. Brown in this spot, and Ryan Tannehill has struggled throwing to other people. I mean, the Titans are like one of the best teams in the NFL in almost every advanced metric offensively since Ryan Tannehill took over, but so much of it has been just three guys, Tannehill, A.J. Brown, and Derrick Henry. You would think that the Patriots have a solid plan to take out, two guys, A.J. Brown and Derrick Henry. Maybe easier said than done, especially on Derrick Henry, but I'm sure that they'll be very focused on taking A.J. Brown out. So yeah, it's an interesting game. A lot of people are ready to bury the Patriots. I've been ready to bury the Patriots before and have them shove it right down my throat. So I'm not willing to say they're dead yet. I think they can definitely win here. I'd be shocked if the Patriots went into Arrowhead and won. But I don't know. I don't want to like say too many bad things about the Patriots because I've been down this road too many times.
Yeah. So if you think that the Patriots are going to win, even with the wide gap between his floor and his ceiling, because of the fact that, he just doesn't catch any passes. Sony Michel, we saw what he did last playoffs, like when entire drives were just fed to him. If you think that they're going to be playing from ahead, that he's going to get the bulk of the work in the second half. He's got 58 carries over the past 3 weeks and is one of 3 running backs in the league that's had 18 plus carries in each of the past 3 games. The other 2, one is Joe Mixon, the other is Derrick Henry on the other side of the ball. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of variance with him, but I think that on a short slate like this, especially, as I said before, with all of the ownership and a lot of the traffic, in my opinion, coming from the 2 games that are going to be on Sunday, if you're going to play the Saturday games from a tournament perspective, you want to capitalize on as much touchdown equity as you can possibly get. And in the lineups where you're rostering guys from these games, and Sony Michel is exactly that guy. There's definite paths to 20 or 25 plus fantasy points for the price that he's at. 100 yards and 2 touchdowns being the way that he can get there. The percent of time that happens, I'm not entirely sure. The one guy that I'm kind of torn on, and it's because like you said, a lot of people want to bury New England right now because they're coming off a loss to Miami. They haven't been all that outstanding this year. Derrick Henry has been outstanding, and New England's allowing the 11th most yards after first contact this season, more than the Redskins, more than the Cardinals, more than the Browns. And we have Derrick Henry, who since the beginning of last season is averaging more yards after first contact than any other running back in the league. So we've got an absolute beast. Like I think I called him a brick on stream earlier this week. I was like, he's a big 250-pound brick that runs 4.5. And I don't think anybody wants to get in front of that when it happens. So Derrick Henry is kind of pricey. On the road, an underdog who doesn't catch all that many passes. Can we pay up to be contrarian here with Derrick Henry, or is it being contrarian at all, Pete?
I think it'll be contrarian considering how the slate breaks down and what we want to do. I think that certainly is a way you can go. See a lot of people on Twitter, posting screenshots of taking, Titans futures or Titan money line this. So I do think a lot of people are trying to bury the Patriots now, and the market's still saying, Patriots are favored by 5. So I do think, you want to generally favor the Patriots here and the Patriots players in this spot. But yeah, Derrick Henry has been awesome and certainly an interesting tournament play for me. I think it will be contrarian, so that's the leverage relatively. But the play that I want to talk about is Corey Davis on the Titans, who has a history of just absolutely crushing the Patriots, including a playoff game where he scored 2 touchdowns, even when the Patriots slaughtered the Titans. That was obviously a Mariota-led team and back when Eric Decker was on the squad. But Corey Davis has done well. And, with the assumption that the Patriots are going to do a lot to take away A.J. Brown, he is at least somewhat interesting to me. I do think the highest equity plays are going to be Edelman, James White, and potentially Sony Michel as well. But what do you guys think about Corey Davis? Is that too thin? Because we've talked about him a lot this year just as like a pivot play off A.J. Brown, and he really hasn't done all that much. But in this particular spot, Adam, you just referenced, Patriots game plan should be to take away A.J. Brown and Derrick Henry. So in theory, that could lead to some opportunity for someone like Corey Davis.
Yeah. I mean, it's been the same story with Corey Davis all year. A theoretically talented player with a good role and good opportunity metrics who just doesn't put it in the box score. Kind of reminds me of Sammy Watkins a little bit. So yeah, it would be, I think, a leap of faith to think that this is the spot where he blows up. And if you believe in the DVP stuff, he's certainly torched the Patriots. I faded him in that one game last year when everybody was on him against the Patriots. And it was like the only good wide receiver game the Patriots allowed all year. So yeah, I'm very familiar with Corey Davis just torching the Patriots.
Yeah. Theoretically talented is like probably the meanest thing you've ever said.
I don't get into evaluating talent, so I don't know. I mean,
theoretically talented, I guess maybe.
He was a number 5 overall pick in the draft, right? He's got to be somewhat talented.
Look, he's cheap. That's really what we're looking at here, right? More than anything else. More than the batter versus pitcher, more than the history versus this team, more than whatever other anecdotal stuff that we can say. He's a player who's on the field, running a bunch of snaps, has a path to targets, has seen a red zone target in 3 of the past 4 games, which is way more than he saw. He had like 1 red zone target this season before the past 4 games. He's not somebody that they've used around the goal line or in the end zone. And that role has seemed to grow as everybody else, other teams are starting to key on other players. So we have a path to maybe 4, 5, 6 targets here for a guy who has seen more red zone usage recently and is sub 4K. And as tight as the pricing is this week, if you want to squeeze somebody like Michael Thomas in the lineup, or Ertz if he's actually going to play, or Goddard, who's the second most expensive tight end, you're going to have to find a value wide receiver in order to be able to do it. And he's one of them. So is Mo Sanu in the same game.
Yeah, Mo Sanu has been super disappointing for our Patriots.
He's theoretically talented, Pete.
Definitely not.
Yeah, he has a cannon for an arm, and I do expect that the Patriots stick around. They have a lot of these trick plays, and that's one thing I thought about with Sanu. Sanu, Edelman, and Brady all can throw the football efficiently, and McDaniels has been known to do that stuff. So there is a sneaky play with Sanu throwing a touchdown somewhere here. But yeah, Corey Davis, last comment on him. I think that in general, all the DVP stuff, or specifically like, oh, this is what he's done versus other teams is very noisy. But it is interesting here now with A.J. Brown garnering so much attention. And the frustrating thing for me on Corey Davis is he was a touchdown machine in college, and he models as someone who should be really efficient and a big touchdown scorer, and it just hasn't happened this year. I mean, he's 6'3", he's a big guy that in theory they should be able to use, but he just hasn't done it. So I think it's an interesting spot. A lot of tournament plays, maybe some cash game plays on the Patriots side, but it's tricky. 44 total. I think people are going to save a lot of roster spots for the Sunday games, which we'll get into now. And the first game on Sunday is the game that's going to have by far the most ownership, has the highest total, and just some lock button plays, at least in terms of cash games, in my opinion. They're the Vikings at Saints. Saints 7.5-point favorites. The total now is around 50. What are the news and notes here, Adam?
Yeah, Dalvin Cook says he's 100% now. I mean, he's had 3 full weeks off from an injury that wasn't considered too major. So I think Dalvin Cook is actually 100%. Alexander Mattison is as well. Adam Thielen, I don't know if he's hurt or what, but he has not produced since he's been back from his injury. For what it's worth, he's not on the injury report this week. Obviously, the Saints come in as what I think will be the most owned players on this slate: Brees, Kamara, Michael Thomas, and even Saints defense, I think, is one of the higher equity plays. So, it's kind of like what we saw in that Saturday slate. Like, if you consider yourself a GPP player, like obviously in hindsight, being all in on Deshaun Watson and DeAndre Hopkins and Will Fuller at like 60, 70% owned on that 3-game Saturday slate looked really dumb in hindsight, but you just have to weigh it. I think this spot for the Saints is better than that spot for the Texans was. The Vikings secondary has been so flammable. Obviously, they're playing the Superdome, et cetera, and it's just really hard to see Michael Thomas and Kamara failing. Kamara has not shown the ceiling that we have liked, although his touchdown regression has come lately. But anytime a guy's going to catch, a floor of 4 passes in a game, there's always going to be a really good floor on Alvin Kamara. So yeah, I think it's pretty clear the Saints stuff is some of the best stuff on the slate.
Is it touchdown regression in terms of Kamara, or is it new volume? Because he was not getting carries inside the 5, and then all of a sudden, the last few games, he's starting to get inside the 5 carries, and magically, he's scoring more touchdowns. Yeah, he did score that one long touchdown a couple weeks ago. I just think that his volume has now changed closer to the goal line, which is great for us, right? His volume overall has come down, but his highest leverage volume has gone up. My question for both of you, there's 2. 1, how many lineups, what percentage of lineups in this tournament on DraftKings, in the big tournament, are going to have Brees, Kamara, Thomas stacks? That's question number 1.
35%. Have all 3. It's my guess.
Okay, so like exceptionally high.
What do you think?
Are going to have all 3 of them?
Yeah, I never really thought about it from a stacks perspective, but I do think that that Michael Thomas specifically is going to be like, 80, between 60 90. And 70, 80, yeah, and Kamara I think will be the most owned running back as well.
Right. I mean, I think if you want to get contrarian in this game, I obviously think that is the right play. Brees, Kamara, Thomas is the right quote unquote play, right? But let's get a little bit funky here. Let's say you want to fade that, right? You're still going to have Brees. You think Brees is going to have a 25 to 30 point fantasy day, which is going to be high on this slate, or one of the highest on this slate. And the quarterback scoring is somewhat bunched in a very tight band. What if Jared Cook has another multiple touchdown game? And what if Dalvin Cook also, right, who is back and healthy, and you look at games that they've lost this year by 6 or more points, he is scoring as many points per game in those games as he did versus all the other games, the other 6 games that he played in this year. So it's not like he's not a game flow independent guy. They do throw him the ball. He gets basically all the carries inside the 5 for them. So any touchdowns they score when they get close are probably going to go towards him. I think that Thielen is going to be somebody who is going to be a point of contention. Some projection models have him getting closer to his 28-29% target rate earlier in the season, and some have him down around 21-22%. It's going to be a matter of where you think he's going to play. But if you want to stack this game and differentiate yourself, Drew Brees, Jared Cook, Dalvin Cook, and maybe somebody like Thielen separates you from where the crowd's going to go, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of ways you can get contrarian with this game. I mean, if you want to fade the mega chalk and go like Saints defense, Latavius Murray, I think that's an interesting game theory play. You could obviously do the same thing with Kamara. The scary part is just Michael Thomas sees so much volume; it's hard to see him failing. And outside of week 17, he was just so consistent. So that's the hard part. I love the Jared Cook call. I mean, Steph Diggs, Adam Thielen, I think are really intriguing, and Dalvin Cook, I don't think will be that owned, but maybe I'm wrong on that. Just given,
that's what I'm saying. He's the contrarian kind of bring back play on the other team. The point with Thomas is, what if Thomas has a good game and it's like 23 points, 24 points, right? What if it's not 35? I'm not saying he's going to fail. I'm not saying he's going to score 7, but if he scores 23, 24, and you load up on somebody else and Cook has a 20-point game, right? Or both Cooks have a 20-point game. You've differentiated yourself to be able to pay up for other stuff. I'm not saying that's the quote unquote right way. It's a short slate. I'm trying to point out some different angles that our listeners can.
Absolutely. I mean, you can do some other stuff too. I mean, you can load up on Kirk Cousins and their passing game and then run it back. I mean, you can stack up this game, or there's a lot of ways you can go about it. But the one nice thing from a game theory perspective is we know, like, with a lot of certainty, where the ownership's going to be specifically on these Saints guys. So for those of you playing tournaments out there, I think that's really interesting to think about. And it is tough. I mean, I think from my perspective, Kamara fails way more often than Michael Thomas.
Agree.
So that's another thing to just keep in mind.
He's also $2K cheaper. Yeah.
Yeah, he is. I mean, and Michael Thomas is expensive. I mean, like Al said, like,
he should be.
Play out the scenarios where, Michael Thomas has a good but not great game. Like, do you need him to win tournaments given his price? I mean, it depends on what else happens on the slate, obviously.
The problem is he's expensive, but he should be more. I mean, that's the problem. He should be like 10
he should be like 9,900. Yes.
Yeah, totally agree. And the one thing, I think Drew Brees is such a strong play. I mean, he's been so good at home, and man, this Viking secondary is just atrocious. And one other comment, different form of speculation, but the Saints' future prices to win the Super Bowl and the NFC are wildly different depending on the book that you're looking at. I actually don't have DraftKings specifically in front of me, but definitely take a look at those prices. I've seen the Saints, anywhere from like plus 450 to 500 to win the Super Bowl, and as high as plus 700, which I actually think when you can get that plus 700 range is really enticing, because the path for the Saints, the Vikings here, and then if they win, they're going to be playing the Packers, who a lot of people are very bearish on the Packers. And if you look at the futures market, they are not getting much respect. So one other interesting angle to at least consider. And that's something that's fun. Definitely check out DraftKings for the futures. It's fun to just look at that and see how things change. Last game on the slate is the Seahawks at Eagles. Seahawks are favored by 2 with a total of 45. And one thing I want to say, I mean, Carson Wentz deserves so much credit, and he's getting it now. But what a ridiculously good season that he had, given the weaponry and just all the injuries. A lot of people are trying to bury him middle of the season. I think he's a absolute franchise quarterback, one of the first guys, if every player was available, that I'd want to draft. And hopefully the Eagles can keep it going. Levitan in Philly, is he getting the same kind of love that I just expressed, or are there still some haters out there?
No,
Philly doesn't give anybody love.
The people prefer Big Nick still, I think. But, you could change. Carson could change that with Carson's just a dweeb, right? Like I make
what
fun
are
of
you
Russ
talking about? A dweeb?
He's just a dork. Have you followed him on Instagram or?
Yeah, I mean, he lives a different life. I mean, he's about the church life and praying, and
right.
He's Jack Ertz. And
wait a minute. Adam has an Instagram account.
My buddy sent me.
My buddy. Yeah.
We just like to laugh at Carson, but yeah.
My buddy sent me pictures of him on Instagram. That's what happens.
I'm a big fan of Carson Wentz. The dweeb commentary is atrocious.
He's a herb. Okay. I don't know, man. Yeah, I think Carson. I mean, there were some games Carson was woefully inaccurate. He's undoubtedly
he was hurt.
Yeah, okay. I mean, okay.
It's hard to be accurate, too, when you got freaking some guys that are fast and you get other guys out there that can't run routes. I mean, I do agree. There are some bad games, though. But I think he deserves a ton of credit. the MVP conversation is always the great teams. Like getting this Eagles team to the playoffs was unbelievable.
For sure.
Fired Pete up.
And yeah, I didn't know that we were touching a nerve here on Carson freaking Wentz. No, and lately, I mean, he's been awesome, and given that his number one receiver is Greg Ward and Arcega-Whiteside can't play, and Zach Ertz was playing hurt now, was out in week 17. Yeah, I mean, if you adjust for injuries, he's been awesome. They lost Brandon Brooks, which I think is a big loss. One of the best guards in the game. Lane Johnson, if he plays, I think will be playing at less than 100%, but sounds like he's going to play. Miles Sanders is a question mark for this game. Deshaun Jackson remains out. If they advance, they think Deshaun Jackson could play in the divisional round. I don't expect to see Nelson Aguilar. And then Jordan Howard situation, who knows, man? They say he's been cleared. He was active last week, but even with Miles Sanders going down, Jordan Howard still only played one snap. Like, it was so weird. They just rode Boston Scott. So there's so many injuries to talk about. And I haven't gotten to the most important one on the Eagles side, which is Zach Ertz. And at this point, it is Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern, the worst time zone. And Zach Ertz is looking doubtful, in my opinion. They say they'll take it up to game time, but I'd be a little bit surprised if he played. If that's the case, the two tight end set will be Dallas Goedert, who would turn into, obviously the standout tight end play on the slate, and then Josh Perkins, is a pass catcher, man. Like, the way they've used him is slot and wide and as a pass catcher. So, and they're still going to run a ton of 12. So, I don't know if Josh Perkins qualifies as a sleeper or not, but if Ertz is out, I would expect Josh Perkins to be reasonably popular. And I didn't even get to the Seattle stuff, but there's just so many injuries on the Eagles side.
Yeah, I was going to say, you didn't mention the one guy who leads the league in end zone targets and is way cheaper than the co-receiver on his team. DK Metcalf sits at kind of a tasty price in a game that I think is going to be very close and competitive. Both teams do things that the other teams don't really do well at stopping. Seattle not good at stopping opposing tight ends. They allow a lot of efficiency when quarterbacks throw at opposing tight ends. And Philly is the team that we attack with wide receivers all season long. This game makes a lot of sense to stack secondary to that New Orleans game. Metcalf is probably my favored play based on all things considered. If there was no salaries, obviously I would be on Lockett more. But with Metcalf, I get down the field targets. I also get the high leverage end zone targets. Philly's allowing a touchdown on 8.3% of their deep pass attempts this season. And Metcalf, as I said before, led the league in terms of end zone targets. If you're not going to play one of the Philly tight ends, you can look on the other side of the field towards Jacob Hollister, who has at least 6 targets in 4 of his past 5 games. And he got a season high 3 red zone targets last week against San Francisco, catching passes at a discount versus the 2 Philadelphia tight ends. From a historically accurate, efficient red zone quarterback and end zone quarterback, I think Russ came into the season like a 6.1 touchdown percentage, which in terms of the modern era, he was tied with Aaron Rodgers for the best touchdown percentage with over 2 or 3 seasons worth of play. Obviously, last season we had a ridiculous rate from Mahomes. This season, a ridiculous rate from Lamar Jackson. But Russ is as good as anybody gets when he throws into the end zone and inside the red zone. So Hollister, if you're going to get off of the 2 wide receivers, provides you with at least a little bit of value at the tight end spot.
I had someone else you can get on to that I think will be low owned that I think is an interesting play. Travis Homer. This is not a bet on talent really, but it's a bet on involvement in the passing game. And I'd be curious to hear your guys' opinion. And I certainly need to dig into this more, but encouraging usage in the passing game. And I really don't expect Marshawn Lynch to be heavily involved. I guess the counter to that would be, Marshawn Lynch came in so late, they signed him off the street, and, he started to feel better towards the end of the game. Maybe he plays more snaps, but I was encouraged just by Travis Homer's usage in the passing game. And I think he's going to come in like really, really low owned. And maybe I'm wrong about that, but that's something that I do think is interesting. Jacob Hollister, I like that call a lot. I love the call as well on DK Metcalf. What are your guys' thoughts on the quarterbacks as well, who I think both will be low owned?
I like Wentz, even if he's a dweeb.
Yeah, I prefer Russ. Russ is also a dweeb, but I prefer.
Oh him. My gosh, Levitan.
Russ is most definitely a dweeb. That's not debatable.
Have you seen him like he has the khakis?
He's not a dweeb. Hawaiian... No, sorry. No, apologies. He's not a dweeb, right? He's a nerd, but like so am I. So like who cares?
Oh, I don't care. I'm just saying. Yeah. I think
if anyone's a dweeb, it's this Travis Homer guy, right? But he's involved in the passing game.
I have a very serious question that I need Adam to answer. Who runs a faster 40 right now, but considering both would be healthy, Marshawn Lynch or Rhett Ellison? This is a two-part question.
I think if they were on the field racing against each other, instincts would take over and Marshawn would win.
You think, okay, so on the anecdotal instinct.
Marshawn just doesn't care. Marshawn just doesn't care. If he just got out there and ran a 40, then Rhett would beat him.
Okay, so therefore, by the transitive property, Adam thinks he is faster than Marshawn Lynch. Is this correct, sir?
Why not? Sure.
Yet another charity race that we're going to have to make happen.
I shouldn't have said anything negative about Travis Homer. You guys still haven't addressed it. I mean, the guy ran a 4.48 40.
Yeah.
He's fine. I like him. He's a good price. He's got involvement in the passing game. He's just not going to get the goal line carries, but whatever. He can get there at that price.
Who's heard of Travis Homer, though? Like, that's what I'm thinking. Like, maybe I'm way off on this, but he feels like someone who's going to be really, really low owned. Maybe I'm wrong on that.
I don't think he's going to be low owned because you're going to get box score watchers.
Yeah. And maybe that's
I think he's got double-digit fantasy points the last 2 weeks, and he's 5,300 on a slate where we're kind of starved for a little bit of value. And in full PPR, I definitely think people are going to click him. I don't think he's going to be like sub 5%.
Yeah.
Like at all.
I was thinking like, in that 5 to 10% range. Maybe I'm wrong on that.
Maybe.
But what do you think about Marshawn Lynch, Adam? Because I think that's one thing that, when you're looking at these running backs, I mean, I think the passing game is clear. You got Lockett, Metcalf, Hollister, and you can figure out what you want to do based on price ownership. But then the running game specifically for Seattle, I mean, we have all the news on the Eagles side, but the running game for Seattle, I think, is at least intriguing. And my initial thought was people love Marshawn Lynch and they love Skittles and they're going to click him and you might get some leverage here. But Al seems to think that I might be wrong.
I think Homer's going to be more owned than Lynch.
Yeah. I mean,
you think I'm wrong
Eagles
there?
Defense has been able to do anything, it's like suffocate these like one-dimensional backs. So, I don't think
Marshawn I have no interest in Lynch personally.
Yeah, I mean, I think Homer will be more popular pretty likely.
Lynch is in Bettis mode right now for me. Like he could have 2 touchdowns, but it's not going to come on a lot of carries or yards per carry.
Yeah, I only want to play him if he holds his while he goes over the goal line.
This is only something we'll know in hindsight. And even though it is 2020 now, I don't know that we can predict that.
If anyone out there has talked to Marshawn and if he can confirm that he'll hold his going over the goal line, I will play him.
Yeah. David Moore had a touchdown called back last week. He's a punter.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I didn't get to my Seattle notes.
Yeah. Get to Seattle notes. I'm trying to tee up here for Travis Homer and you're
well, yeah. The notes that I have are more on the David Moore. I mean, Malik Turner wasn't cleared last week, allowing David Moore to play over 70% of the snaps. And, the number 3 wide receiver role for the Seahawks is a low volume, like floor of 0 kind of play, but at least we know that if Malik Turner misses again, which it looks like he will, then David Moore would play that role, and Josh Gordon played it for a little bit, and Malik Turner has played it, and Jerron Brown has played it, and, like I said, the floor is 0, but at least, it's worth mentioning, I think, the David Moore thing. And it sounds like you were on team
dart throw.
You were on team watching games, yeah. Yeah. Oh, and Luke Wilson is probably going to play in this game, I think, which, hasn't affected Travis Hollister or Jacob Hollister too much, but just worth noting.
Last question for you guys. Let's say Miles Sanders does miss. Do we elevate Jordan Howard at all, or are we just going to go all in on Boston Scott? Not all in, but it's a very tricky situation to me.
Yeah, Eagles doctors cleared him to play last week, but they needed him. It was like an emergency, and he still didn't play. So I don't know what's going on, man. I really don't. I'm really not comfortable answering right now. I have no idea what's going on with Jordan Howard's shoulder. It's like the weirdest thing ever.
Yeah. All right.
Peterson seems to go with the hot hand philosophy, too, and Boston Scott was certainly the hot hand last few weeks.
Yeah. There's a lot of legends in Philly. Carson Wentz, Boston Scott, Greg Wood. Total legends, and of course Dallas Goedert, who he's going to be. his ownership would really, really rise if Zach Ertz is out. So that's obviously the cash game play. But if Zach Ertz out, you definitely want to consider some other guys for tournaments. Given, I mean, if Ertz is out, Goddard approaches like the 50% owned range. You think, Adam?
It's pretty expensive, but yeah, I mean, there's just not many options at tight end. I think even if Ertz is out, I think Jared Cook has many outscores Goddard, a lot of the time, 40%. I don't know, so yeah, I don't think it'll get that far out of control. Maybe 30, 35.
Okay.
There's just not a lot of good tight ends on this slate. So like it's almost pay for the volume guys or punt and hope for a touchdown. Like ultra punt, like sub 3K punt.
Yeah, that's where I think that Buffalo Texans guys, all those punts are somewhat intriguing.
Akins and Irv.
There's
Uncle Irv.
There's a lot of dumpster fires at tight end. All right. Well, this is a fun slate. Make sure to take advantage of late swap. Adam, give your final thoughts. Kick it to Al, and we'll get out of here.
Yeah, we're gonna have one more show after this. We're not gonna do a show obviously for the 2-game slate because that would just be silly. So, second to last 3-man of the year. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope everyone had a great new year, and I will be back for a solo pod next week. So good luck to everybody in their contest. Al, get us out of here.
Guys, thanks for listening once again. As Adam said, the final 2 podcasts of the season, maybe ever. We'll catch you later. Bye, guys.
We are promoters at DraftKings and also avid fans. Our usernames are Adam Levitan, Al Smizzle, and CSU Ram 88. We may sometimes play on our personal accounts in the games that we offer advice on. Although we have expressed our personal view on the games and strategies in this podcast, they do not necessarily reflect the views of DraftKings, and we also may deploy different players and strategies than what we recommended in this podcast.